Who's the biggest loser your son/daughter has dated? My brother is currently dating and engaged to one of the worst people I've ever met. She is manipulative and controlling. She likes to do shitty, mean things, and when confronted, will act completely innocent and play the victim. And she has on several occasions made up stories and lied for the sole purpose of causing chaos. She almost destroyed my other brother's marriage. His wife is her best friend and has all but ruined my brother's relationship with our mom and other sister. I really think she is entertained by the misery she causes. The best part of all of it? They are getting married in 11 days. Not my daughter but my niece. When she was 14 she met a dude on the internet who was 22 and from across the country. We were not happy. He came to visit and he was the weirdest dude I ever met. I was only 4 years older and tried to have conversations with him, but he was just monosyllabic. Exactly the kind of dude who you would expect to hit on 14-year-olds in anime forums on the internet. Of course we watched them like a hawk and they were never left alone together. I still admire my sister. She firmly put down the rules. No being alone together, no sleeping in the same room, etc. But never said anything against the relationship. The whole thing ended pretty much right after his visit. If my sister had forbidden it, I'm sure it would have gone on much longer. The full story. My father had a massive brain aneurysm. They had taken him to a hospital 5 hours away. I had just arrived there when my ex-husband called me and said my daughter was on the way to the hospital and told me what had happened. It was definitely rape. For someone who mentioned, was it really, or did she just say that when the children saw them, there was no question due to the trauma? He stands 6 feet 4 inches. My daughter is 4 minutes and 11 seconds and weighs 100 pounds. The kicker was that we found out he had a bit of a history of being a predator, as he was one of those cops that would solicit favors when he stopped women, i.e. they could get out of a ticket if the department he worked for got wind of this and they reached some agreement, whereas he would quietly retire and nothing would be on his record. I can't remember exactly how my daughter found this out, but I know it was shortly before the trial and someone came to her about it. So yes, he did time. He is now out. There is a restraining order in effect for 7 years, and most likely that will easily be renewed. He has taken her to court I don't know how many times in the last couple of years, trying to get the restraining order lifted because he states it is keeping him from gaining employment since it's attached to a rape. SMH. He represents himself every time he comes to court. It's almost comical. He's narcissistic and psychotic. I call him a $ maggot. The kids were all in therapy. They're great kids. Very well adjusted. She's an amazing gal. She's 3 months from her masters, works full time, and has never missed one of the kids' activities. They dealt with it and moved on. To quote Shakespeare, though she be but little, she is fierce. My sister is dating a guy who is a asshole to everyone he meets, but cries when you give it right back to him. He is also an enabler to her depression and anxiety. Instead of trying to encourage her to fix herself, he tells her that she doesn't need to, and he will do it for her. Obligatory not a son or daughter scenario, but my older brother dated a girl who pretended that she broke all of her bones in a car wreck. She put both of her arms in slings, put braces on her legs, and a travel pillow around her neck. I remember asking her about her back, if all of her bones were broken anyway, and she started to cry. Lol, they didn't last long. My sister dated this dickhead that would make her cry about once every 2 months. He posted something to Facebook that had a picture of a notebook and something like, if you come home and expect your husband to work around the house, you're going to have a bad marriage. Inside the book, she broke up with him just a month ago. Son dated a girl who said she had a friend who needed a ride to the prom. I agreed. Day of the prom, she says, oh, he's in this town. In the next state. I left work at 10 AM, drove 3 hours, picked up this kid, brought him home. He has no prom clothes, not even a suit. Luckily, we are close enough in size that I can lend him one. I'll lend him suit, shirt, tie, buy him dress shoes, pay for haircut. We are late, so the pre-prom dinner my kid had planned is out the window. Pictures not possible because we don't have time. We get one decent snap. Guess who's in the center? Yep. Out of state dude. Girlfriend ended up spending the entire prom with this dude. Apparently he was an ex. They go to an after party. My son is left behind. He gets his own ride home, but doesn't stop by to drop off my suit and tie. Later, we find out girlfriend and out-of-state dude had baby making session at some point during that night. Baby was formed. Who is the father? According to girlfriend, my son is. Complication. They never had sex. According to him, she would have gotten away with it to some degree, but had the bad judgment to tell friends that it was actually out-of-state dude. Fortunately, my son found out and broke it off with her. To be honest, I could have written all that off as youthful idiocy, but a few months into the pregnancy, she has the balls to come to our house and tell me that her parents were kicking her out and would it be okay if she moved into my finished basement apartment so her baby wouldn't be homeless? Like WTF. The end of the story is that out-of-state dude heard that he was the baby daddy and came back to bring her home with him. And as far as I know, they are still living in his parents' trailer. My sister dated a guy, let's call him Tom, who worked under my dad at the business he owns and runs. Now I'm not saying Tom was a loser, because worked for our family. My sister and I both work in similar positions and that's how they met. But there were a number of instances that just shouted, hey what's up, I'm Tom, and I'm a loser. For example, Tom seemed to never have any money, usually blaming things like his rent being too high or his car needing to be worked on. Due to this, my sister ended up having to pay for the majority of the dates and dinners that they went on. In reality, he had spent most of his money on unnecessary toys like dirt bikes, guns, and modifications for his 1999 Honda Civic. His spending habits got so bad that his landlord threatened him with eviction. This tore my sister up, not because he was getting evicted, but because she knew that he was making enough money to never be in that type of situation. Anyway, Tom got the bright idea to ask her and my father for the rent money, $650, while they were out to dinner. My dad ended up helping him out so he wouldn't go homeless, but what he didn't know was that Tom had asked him for more money than what his rent was so he could go out and spend it on other things other than my sister. So yeah, he was a loser, and I didn't like him much. My little sister dated a guy who kept trying to convince her to drop out of a rug school and move into his mom's garage with him, up to and including threatening suicide if she didn't. It took way too much effort on my dad and my part to get her to put the kibosh on that relationship, mostly because the guy's mom thought my sister was good for him and tried to fight us on it. I'm driving my daughter home and she says, "Oh, I forgot to tell Benjamin what house number we are." I'm a mite confused by this. I've heard about Benjamin before, but there was never any indication he was going to come over or anything. Me, why does Benjamin need to know our house number? Daughter, so he can sleep over. We are going to get married. At that point, I nearly drove off the road, but luckily we were almost home, and I drove into the driveway. So this Benjamin was engaged to my daughter, and I haven't even met him yet? Hadn't even heard she was dating? What absolute, absurd nonsense. So definitely this Benjamin guy. My daughter's 4, by the way. I almost drove off the road because I was laughing so hard. While nothing compared to some of the stories here, it doesn't feel great to see my daughter move in with a high school dropout and take a break from college. I'm expecting any day now to hear that her savings that were supposed to be for college will be going to pay off his debt. My sister dated them all. My favorite was a guy who convinced her to have joint bank accounts and stole 6 months worth of pay from her. We didn't know until after the relationship. The dude was a major conman salesman type that had like 4 different get rich quick schemes while they dated. As nice as my brother-in-law is, he is pretty terrible in terms of job/goals/life ambitions. He hasn't worked a steady job for almost 10 years or so and is now pushing like 40. He had been a Raps driver and either lost that job or was laid off or something, and since then, he has just done oddball things to kind of keep money in, but nothing has flourished or lasted long. He was going to be a singing coach. He was going to do lawn maintenance. And currently his next big venture is dog walk/sitting. Consequently, my sister works 3 jobs to keep their family comfortable and to support my niece. It wouldn't be so terrible if he did more stuff around the house, but after this past visit to their home, I don't think he does much of anything other than sit around and watch TV and maybe make dinner every once in a while. My dad has tried subtly talking to her about the situation, but she says she's happy with her life. But sometimes her tone says something else. I dated a lot of stupid, just plain dumb guys in high school. One of the worst mistakes was my boyfriend sophomore year told me he had lung cancer because he's been smoking cigarettes since he was 8. He wrote me like this weird journal/letter about it. I didn't believe him for a second, but continued dating him for another month or so. He's married with a kid now, so I'm pretty sure the cancer thing wasn't true. Mayo. If my parents used Reddit they would probably mention my ex-boyfriend who I dated long distance online from 19 to 22. He lived with his parents, didn't want to get a job, smoked weed all day, and did mushrooms for clarity. Forced me to avoid talking to others, or even go out with my family to do things, because he would blow up my phone saying I was cheating due to his lousy ex-relationship he was cheated on during. He had a kid at 18 during a drunken one-night stand, and had to babysit her every week, while complaining about her grandmother, who was taking care of her, because the mother didn't want her. He didn't pay child support, so he had to guiltily take care of the kid at every beck and call of the grandmother. Lashed out at me constantly, and would starve himself for days, to make me feel bad about literally anything that mildly bothered him. Generally needed a lot of fucking help that he refused to get. I was at a really low point in my life and thought I was worthless, and that he was the only one that could love me. I know my parents wouldn't get into my love affairs, but they were absolutely thrilled when I finally grew self-worth and got out of it. I had always pieced together information about him to them, because I knew they wouldn't approve, and every time I said more they held back, but were obviously thinking he was trash. I cringe extremely hard when I remember all of it. Blake, we took him into our home for a few months so he could save up some money. Our internet bill went through the roof. I think he played video games. Then one day, Independence Day, he dumped her, all while his clan from Texas was camping in our yard on the way to a music festival. I guess I should have keyed in when he mentioned he had moved multiple times. Brother's girlfriend hit my English bulldog with a shovel because he was barking and it scared her, as she showed up unexpectedly at my parents' house around 1 AM. He is still with her because she's lonely and has no friends or family. Maybe because she's a psychotic bitch.